Hello, Marty. Welcome to Guy Talk. How you been, buddy?
Doing good.
Long time since I've seen you. Well, wanted to talk a little bit today about maybe about some of our past, your past primarily, then some of maybe our past similarities. Some of the distinctions that are different than what
Sure.
we had. So everybody knows that you're would you say a spy, CIA? No, no, that you were a SEAL. You're a businessman, successful businessman. Now you're running a foundation. Let's talk about that. Tell me, how did you start in all this? Because everybody wants to know that story.
Yeah, I mean, I'm accused of telling long stories, but I'll keep this short. So I was born in 1958.
Oh, hold on. Okay, go ahead. 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Then I joined the Navy. How's that?
Very good.
That's for elite.
Very good.
Yeah, born in Nebraska, joined the Navy when I was 17. Went to school for radar air traffic control. Graduated number one in my class. Got an automatic promotion to E5. And then was presented with a mistaken packet of orders. And you know how orders work. You got to do whatever they say, right?
Right.
And the order said, report no later than 07:30 tomorrow morning to underwater demolition SEAL training, Coronado, California. Didn't know what any of those words meant. Back in those days, nobody knew what SEALs were. They gave me the tickets. They said, here you go. I called my dad from O'Hare Airport. He had me read how they usst to put the orders on the outside of the big envelope,
Yeah.
and under pain of death, if you open the envelope, had your dental and medical and all that. So I read it to him, and he was a Korean War vet, and he goes, well, that's what they call them orders, son. Go there and find a chief, and he'll get it all sorted out. I went there, and it was on a Friday, and on Monday morning, I went over to Bud's, like I was going to fix a traffic ticket or something. Said, I'm looking for a chief. And nobody wanted to give me the time of day.
Right.
Finally, a Master Chief walks out. He comes out and says, hey, well, Master Chief do? And I'd never seen a Master Chief, actually, at that point in my career. Sure. Takes me back in the office, starts talking to me. 25 minutes later, I volunteered for SEAL training. Talked me right into it. Not because he was brilliant, but because I was kind of stupid. Yeah, and so I ended up, 17 and a half years old, 125 pounds, soaking wet, jumping into one of the world's, most difficult special operations courses without passion, without drive, without goal setting, without practicing push-ups,
Total ignorance.
Just that should be the title of my biography, total ignorance. And that's how it all started. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, 126 of us started, and only 13 of us graduated 6 months later, and then I was off to the races.
Yeah, sounds like a great story. You went in as an enlisted.
Yeah.
Somehow you made it to the officer side, the dark side, and tell us about that. How that happened.
So there was always officers' uniforms hanging around in the locker room, so I just put one on, and
it worked.
And it worked. Yeah,
It fit.
Nobody questioned me, and
Well, you must have put on some weight.
Just didn't get the pay.
You must have put on a little weight from that 125 pounds to fit into that.
No. It took me forever to gain weight. I think at the 10-year mark, I'd finished my business degree, but going to night school whenever I could, and I think I was 145 pounds after 10 years, so 20 pounds of muscle, and and a little bit of my wallet. I used to carry a lot of stuff in my wallet that would tip the scale. So
Challenge coins.
I was at the training center in Coronado, kind of the same as the Green Berets, the JFK Center,
right.
Kind of the heart of more than just the basic selection course. They have lots of different courses there, and I was running the first phase, the selection course phase, we had the famous Hell Week, kind of the crucible, as the senior enlisted of that division. We had 13 or 14 instructors. Most of us were going to school, trying to advance ourselves. And they had a pretty generous enlisted to officer on-ramp program at the time. And you had to still go through a board. They looked at your record. You had to have the degree, obviously. And then I got orders to officers candidate school. So almost exactly to the day of 10 years of service. And I was up for E8 at the time. And I actually, when I was at officers candidate school in Rhode Island, they pulled me out of class. I had to go down and I had to sign away because I'd been picked up for E8. And I guess, the Navy didn't know I wasn't
Right.
Mr. Guy
Sure.
anymore. So, yeah.
And now, in the Army, in a lot of schools, you get through like with for one period of time when I was involved. If you went through Special Forces training, for instance, as an enlisted, you had to go back through as an officer. Did you have to do that? Or they put you through like some gentleman's course for the officers thing?
Well, so Officers Candidate School for the Navy is an engineering, 4 months of engineering.
Mm-hmm.
Now the Marines are kind of running the discipline side of it. They didn't have that when I went through.
Well, that would help with some of the discipline.
Yeah. Well, they're college kids, and if they're engineering background college kids, you're not talking about, truckers and bikers kind of personalities.
Right.
So the upperclassmen ran things. They had a little week called the Crucible, actually, that you got into a big drill hall and they yelled at you and screamed at you and stuff. And unfortunately, a lot of them were breaking down. I just kept thinking, these are all going to be officers leading people in a combat ship, But they weren't. They were just engineers. The Navy knew they were going to be down inside the combat ship, not launching missiles or fighting somebody with a cutlass or something. And I go through that, and I end up being the regimental commander. So I get picked at the midpoint to be the guy in charge of all 600 officer candidates.
Huh.
So, which was kind of cool because the rank for that was second lieutenant bar, butter bar.
Yeah.
It was 5 of them on each side. They call it the railroad tracks. So I had 5 gold bars.
On both sides?
Yeah.
Was that a little heavy?
It was very heavy. I had to watch my posture all the time. And then we wore these black shirts and black pants with a black tie. We called it the 1 Adam 12 uniform. And then you couldn't wear ribbons or anything. I had the gold trident. So I'd be walking and the sun would hit that, and nobody wanted to be near me because they knew I was in charge. And I could see people banking off, trying to clear the sidewalk because they didn't, the candidates didn't want to run into me. But it was actually fun, except that I didn't learn anything. And then I ended up getting all these naval leadership awards. I was number 1 in the curriculum. I had the highest grade point average for my class, but for leadership. And so they present you with these things at graduation. So I got a silver ashtray with an engraving. It was about this big. I call it the silver ashtray. It was like a little plate.
Right.
And then I got a book from a woman that wrote about the first sloop of war, and she signed it to me. And the kind of nerdy engineering guy that got the highest GPA was given an engraved naval officer sword.
Wow. You really made out well on that.
So after graduation, I went up to the director of OCS during the aftermath and said, "Can I just ask you a question? If I had the number 1 GPA in naval tactics, number 1 GPA in leadership, I was a regimental commander. I got an ashtray and a book." and the nerd who knows what the difference between a turbine and a boiler, he gets a freaking killing tool.
Right. Right.
And what's that all about? So I was bitter about it. I would tell that story frequently. So when I actually retired, they presented me with a naval sword, and they told the story.
Made you wait. They made you wait.
Told the story. Like, here you go, whiner. Here's your sword.
All these years of whining,
Yes.
you finally got what you wanted.
Yes, I thought that was what you were going to OCS for, is to get the damn sword.
Right. Well, you had to buy your own, didn't you?
You did, yeah. That was standard, but you didn't need it because if you were a junior, you just borrow one if you're going to a wedding or you're part of a ceremony.
Right.
They didn't demand that you did it.
Right. Right. So when you got out of the Navy, what did you go into then? Were you going into business? Were you a consultant? What did you do? You didn't go right into Blackwater.
No, for years, all of us just knew that the only thing we could possibly do if you were a SEAL was get out and be a cop. Unless you were a medic, then you could probably get out and do something.
Or a criminal, either way.
Yeah. And that's kind of what everybody did, or unless they went back to some family business. So there wasn't a really great, depth of experience and context and networks with people that had got out, transitioned, and they're telling you, hey, here's the 3 steps to success, or here's the 4 ways to do this.
Here's your path.
And so that's part of it. The other part of it is, you're in the game, and every day you're waiting for the phone to ring to go, and you're prepping your gear, and you're working out. And if you're a leader, you're making sure your team's squared away. And you're so much into that you don't really consciously play corporate personnel, for your own career, your own
Right.
history, your own future. So you never sit down and spend any minute on, I wonder what I want to be when I grow up, or what I want to be when I get out of uniform.
Right.
It kind of comes rushing at you, right?
Right.
So about 6 months before I was going to get out, I had 80% disability from a parachute accident, and I was hitting 20, so I said, probably a good time. And I decided I want to be a lawyer. So I studied everything I could. I took the LSAT. I scored really high. I paid some company to take my transcripts and my LSAT scores and my bio and put it all together, and they would shop it to the law schools you wanted to go to. And I was sitting in the command, and a former commanding officer who had left, retired, was visiting somebody in the building. He came into my office and said, "Come on, we're going to lunch. You're not going to be a damn lawyer." So we go to lunch, and he talks me out of going to law school and into managing money, because that's what he's doing.
Huh.
So he got out and he went straight to work for a company called Alex Brown. It was led by a guy named Krongard's son. I happened to put him through BUDS when I was an instructor,
Mm-hmm.
and he would do anything for SEALs, pretty much sight unseen. Big difference, though. The guy that talked me into doing this could speak Portuguese. And he put him in charge of this Portuguese group that were going down and setting up investments in Brazil. I didn't have any cool skill like that. So I was going to be just a generalist, like a stockbroker kind of a thing. And I looked at it and decided to go with another interview just to see what another company would do. And that landed me with a company called Legg Mason Wood Walker, which is based in Baltimore, but was kind of around the country. And the number 2 guy was an Army Ranger officer, pretty good guy. And I signed up with them, and I went through their first 3 or 4 months training and getting all your licensing and everything. But then they basically sit you in a cubicle or a small desk and hand you a phone and a phone book, say, "Good luck, good hunting."
Yeah, make money.
They walk away, and you have no salary. You only get paid salary when you go through that first little initial training. Now you're on whatever fees or commissions you earn. That's what you get paid, but you don't get paid the whole amount. You get paid a percentage of it. And the more your sales numbers go up, there's a thing called the grid, your percentage starts to increase. Beautifully Darwinian, though. You could have the greatest 2 years and just, you go from maybe 10% of sales to 25% of sales. You have a bad quarter, you slip back to 15%. You have a bad year, you're back. So they didn't care about tenure. They didn't care about rank. They didn't care about where you went to school. That's the only thing that counted. Where in military, and you've seen this, I mean, I was smarter than a lot of my officers when I was an enlisted guy. And a lot of them went to Ivy League schools and things like that. I could never understand why they just weren't naturally, instantly smart in what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
They're overthinking it,
Mm-hmm.
or they're not thinking about it at all. They don't want to humble themselves and learn these things, and they have a posture they want to kind of maintain in front of the men. So this was pure merit-based performance.
Yeah.
You suck, you die.
You starve.
You survive, you do okay. You kick ass, you really do okay. So scary at first, but I ended up doing that business for 8 years.
Oh.
Yeah. I shifted over to the United Bank of Switzerland about 2 years in.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And then why'd you get out?
Of that business?
Yeah. Just hit its end. It ran its course.
No, it was about something hitting something. It was 9/11.
Yeah.
So I was in an office with another guy in a place called Hunt Valley, Maryland, and we were having a morning meeting. It was a regional vice president, and he had a television set that was actually between me and the other guy. We were sitting in chairs, looking at him at a desk. He could see the TV, we couldn't, and the sound was off. And he didn't even notice the first plane hitting. But somebody came in, interrupted our meeting, and said, "Hey, a plane just hit, one of the towers."
Yeah.
And when the second plane hit,
You were watching it?
the financial services industries had tons of offices there. United Bank of Switzerland, JP Morgan, everybody had some kind of an office, and they all knew each other, or they all worked there at one point. And pretty soon you hear wailing in this office space.
Wow.
Because people realize their friends are dying,
Right.
And when that happened, I just, the voice in my head said, "We're at war. I got to get the hell out of this office. I can't be at war and be trying to make other people rich. I can't do that."
Right.
And I had about a 45-minute drive home. And of course, 80% disability. They're not going to, take me in. Maybe a suicide mission. They might send me in,
Well, that's one you want to volunteer
one
for.
one way up. Just halo straight into the top of,
Here, carry this.
and then when I land, go, Kylie, and blow myself up or something. But so I ended up starting working for security, counterinsurgency stuff. I was on TV all the time with counterinsurgency. I did contracts related to that. You and I met when I was giving a speech, and then we started talking and created our little company. Thought we'd try to figure out a way to help people, but everybody was on the bandwagon,
Right.
And you and I got pushed out of the way by the second cousin's wife's friend,
Right.
who didn't know anything about anything, or the ex-cop.
But they want to know what you know, and then say, "Well, I don't need you.
Yeah.
I can. I'll get my cousin to do it."
Yeah, great plan.
Yeah.
Let's go buy 2 speedboats.
Right.
Remember that one?
Right. Right.
Still up on shocks. We don't know. They're speedboats. We don't know how to kickstart the engines because they're jets.
Right.
Anyway, yeah. So that's what I mean. I enjoyed managing money, and I learned a lot about human nature. Most of my clients were high net worth, and almost all my clients were blue collar workers, people that were self-made millionaires, and just sitting down, talking to them, or being a golf cart with them. They're telling you been bankrupt 3 times, or their work ethic, their life lessons. I mean, I hadn't been around money at all.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't raised with money. People, the teams, we didn't have money, so I didn't even know how millionaires thought. I used, like everybody else, I just used the movies as my reference point.
Huh.
But these guys weren't like people in the movies. These people were driving pretty simple cars and living in not so extravagant homes, and working a lot and caring a lot about all the shit that they had going on. But
Salt of the earth type.
yeah, not absentee landowners or landlords on any of their businesses, and really focused on the trust factor. They could size somebody up in about a minute. So eventually, I didn't really have to sell. I just had to get in front of people and let them have that moment. And if they trusted me and they had money, we'd end up, working together.
Huh. Interesting. Now, one of you mentioned that you and I were hooked up together in
Not
business.
hooked up. We were
in business.
business. Yeah,
In business.
we weren't hooking up.
Well, just want to clarify.
Even though you were,
Right, we weren't.
even though you were damned attractive.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
One of the projects we had was the Greek ports,
Mm-hmm.
and this was in preparation for the 2004 Olympics.
Right.
And we were into Athens, and we went over on 2 different phases. You went over on 2 different. I went over on 1. And tell us a little bit about that. How did we get into that?
A friend of mine named Stu Smith was working with a group out of Texas, an ex-Secret Service officer who'd been in Secret Service for like 30 years, put his shingle up, and he made some friends with SAIC. SAIC wanted him to do all these different vulnerability assessments inside the United States. So they asked him if they could come over and do something in Athens, because SAIC got the big technical security contract for the Athens Olympics, basically putting in cameras and lights and
Perimeter
special
security
gates
type stuff.
and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Underwater, listening devices, sonar. And Stu couldn't do it. So I put Stu through BUDS when I was an officer at BUDS, my second time going to the training center. And then he worked for me when I was a senior officer at an SDB team, mini submarine team.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in contact with him because he had invited me into the Naval Academy, where he ended up when he got out, because he was a Naval Academy grad. And the Commandant put him in charge of all the fitness training for the Naval Academy. He's still there, in charge of all the fitness for the Naval Academy. Yeah, and he's written a bunch of books. He's a great guy.
I think I remember that name.
Yeah, Stu
In our
Smith.
conversations.
And anyway, he had me coming down doing this leadership lessons learned speaking series at the academy. So we were talking pretty frequently, Get this call. Hey, these guys in Texas. I said yes, and I can't now for family reasons, whatever. What do you think? Sure. It was very short notice.
Yeah.
Jump on a plane and go. So that's how I got into it. It kind of came out of left field. And as you know, it was mostly just walking for 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
And taking pictures of everything.
Especially in Piraeus.
Yeah. Taking pictures of everything and then going back and trying to condense it all into little mini reports and
Right.
observations and opinions.
And blending it at the
Yeah.
end.
But, we made a big difference there.
Yeah.
We, part of special operations is learning how to attack the vulnerabilities of a target. And they used to have, eventually they had a vulnerability assessment in schools. When I first started, they didn't have that. You just listened to guys that had actually gone out and did
Right.
it for real against real bad guys. But the human nature aspect of what's vulnerable about something somebody's trying to protect, because it's all been designed by a human being.
Sure.
And then human beings occupy that space. And human beings, the smokers always put a brick or a rock to keep the door from locking all the way.
Right.
That's human nature, right? And so if you've been trained in that, you look at something, even if it's a big potential target set like all the Olympics venues, how would I do this? How would I go about doing this? You red team it.
And that's exactly what I would do. I would go in there and figure out how I would kill them, and then defend against me.
Right.
And I think was the big change happened a few years back, because most of the people that were doing like the assessment stuff were like former cops and stuff,
Mhm.
and they were all looking from a defensive position, where we went in and looked from an offensive position, and then
Right.
how to defeat yourself.
They were looking for criminal activity
Right.
and what's it called? Vandalism. Those are the two main things: vandalism and destruction of property, or criminal activity. And we were looking at people who want to go in and kill you. And so, what's the shortest path from the exterior to of something of value inside? Interviewing them. What is of value on the inside?
What are the vulnerabilities
Yeah. In the Olympics, it
to
was
get there?
in Piraeus, huge harbor, massive harbor. It's one of the if not the largest, one of the largest harbors
Piraeus was huge.
in Europe. So they were rolling in those cruise liners to be floating hotels for the Olympics.
With the
Perfect
street
targets.
ferries too, the
Yeah.
fast ferries rolling in there.
With the
It's pretty neat.
dropping their anchors, and what you're referring to is these super fast ferries would come screaming in from the Mediterranean, and about halfway in Piraeus Harbor, before they were going to make impact with the piers,
Everybody had to be buckled in.
they started dropping this big chain with an anchor at the bottom of it, and you could hear it everywhere, like bang, 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 bang. And they'd get almost to the pier, and then they basically put a brake on it, and then they motor forward and they'd stop, and they would all do it. They'd come in different lanes, and eventually we figured it out. Right? They said, well, it's not anything about going in; they can't get out because the tides are moving and everything. They just reverse the anchor chain, and they actually pull themselves back out to deep water using that method.
Yeah.
But it always startled you, right? You're
Right.
walking around, it's all nice, and saying, "Oh, wait."
Especially when you're looking for something that might go wrong.
Yeah.
What was that? What was that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But lots of walking and lots of interesting food, and we'd done it before. It wasn't exciting in that it was a project we hadn't had anything to do with, but we came up with some insights that
Yeah.
actually changed. I don't know if it changed history, but it definitely had a huge impact on them. I mean, we came up with these profiles, and this is what we think would be happening, and we back planned it to like now,
Yeah.
18 months before the Olympics, what I would be doing.
Right.
I'd be training people. I'd be selecting people, training people. What would I do at 12 months? I'd be staging things inside Greece.
Right.
I'd be using all the Greek terrorist groups or communist groups, whatever. I'd be paying them money to do all the ground surveillance, reconnaissance of all the different venues and stuff for us.
And Greece back then was right on the edge of the EU,
Yeah.
which was a gateway in
Yeah.
to Europe. So a lot of folks from the Middle East was trying to slide through there to get into the EU.
Yeah.
So there was plenty of people there that were potential operators, potential terrorists
Yep.
that were already working. And we had a couple of like bumps with.
Yeah,
when we were
your
there.
memory on that's better than mine. I know when we left, there was lots of writing to do after the fact. I would get a message or a call from time to time saying, "Hey, you remember when you guys said this and that?" Well, the local law enforcement checked with their financial intelligence guys, and lo and behold, all the local idiots and stuff are getting money funded into them, like big chunks of money wired into their accounts. So now we're surveilling them as they're surveilling the sites. The Greek SEALs took down a tanker coming from, I think it was Egypt, but they knew who the guys were in the tanker because they started using different kinds of intelligence and said that there was group of people that were training in a coastal town in Egypt. And that kind of went in line with the training phase.
Right.
And they boarded them, and the guys had, you know, all kinds of munitions and explosives and stuff. They were going to go to Corfu and sneak across. So we didn't plan a mission, and we didn't know their mission. We just basically said, this is what we would do. Even when, you know, we were in Baghdad together.
Right.
You know, how would we attack this place? So it's the shortest distance between 2 points.
Exactly.
If time's the consideration.
How would I kill it? How do I stop me?
Yeah. You know, what would really make my day go upside down,
Right.
and how do I create that for the bad guy?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when we were in Greece. I was in Saloniki. After we did Piraeus, we had we had 9 guys. One was who was the guy in charge? Tim. Can't remember his last name now. But Tim was in charge, and then he had 2 4-man teams. They split us. Well, 4 went this way, 4 went that way.
Yeah.
You were on one that went that way. I was on the one that went this way.
You went to Crete, right?
I was not in Crete.
I wasn't on the Crete one. I was in Corfu and Thessaloniki.
I was in Saloniki, and I was in that was in the second time, maybe.
Probably.
I was in Saloniki the second time, and when in Saloniki, I was standing there talking to a police officer, probably border patrol kind of guy, and I was standing there, and all of a sudden somebody walked by and bumped my arm. And I looked as they went by, and it was a chain gang walking by, a literal chain gang. They were all handcuffed to this chain. They couldn't get off it. And I went, "What's that?" And he said they were illegal aliens that were found in a cargo container, and there was like 20 of them.
See, I heard a different story. I heard they were walking around with a milk carton with your face on it, asking if anybody had seen this guy.
Well, see, back then this face wouldn't go on any milk carton, but this face would be on a milk carton for sure. But that was quite interesting that they were that close and that able to touch you. They actually touched me as they were walking by. Who's to say they didn't have a shiv? You didn't know. And I don't know if they patted them down first, but they walked by and it was like, wow, there they are. This is what you hear about all the time. They're right there.
You know, you can't turn off the situational awareness that you develop. You know, I mean, obviously cops would have it. Anybody in law enforcement would have it. It's sometimes it's obviously great when you're in uniform and doing those kinds of jobs. It's a blessing, but then it's a curse later on when all your kids are making fun of you, you know, scanning alleyways, you know, always sitting facing the door,
Right.
You know, scanning all the military aged men that walk into a place,
Right.
you know,
Right.
you know, looking at their hands.
Oh no, not that again, Dad. Not that again.
Looking at their hands, looking at their eyes, looking for the exit points. You know, it's not PTSD, it's training. It's
Right.
You just can't turn it off.
But there is a reason you and I got this hold. And that was because you were constantly aware of what was around you and how to avoid it. I truly believe that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole general, in that case, we're talking more of like a threat awareness and stuff, but there's a general awareness is your physical well-being, how you move, how you prepare yourself.
Right. Don't look soft.
Your mental viewpoint,
Right.
whether or not you are open-minded, so you see things that are coming your way that you normally be blindsided to if you were
Right.
closed-minded.
Escape routes.
And just everything, ideas even. I mean, you can, if you just kind of stumble along saying, I've just learned everything I think I'll ever have to learn, and then move forward from that, whatever that age is for you, you leave yourself vulnerable to all kinds of things, and you don't even know you are because you aren't
You're not aware.
open.
Right.
But if you're the opposite, you're always in a semi-state of paranoia that there's somebody out there faster, better, smarter, meaner, something, right?
Yeah,
and
for sure.
what do I got to do when I wake up this morning to make sure I'm prepared for that?
Do the
moment?
best I can.
Yeah, if that engagement happens.
Right.
And it's an interesting trait.
Right.
I don't think it's going to go away. I think you just take it to the grave.
Right. And we were just telling stories a little earlier about other events that happened in our lives. And I brought one up and you brought up one just like it. And I was like, but we're still here. And there was a reason that we're still here is because that we were aware of our situation awareness. Um, when we were in Piraeus, we stayed at a small hotel, like maybe 6 floors, I think it was, something like that. And one of the things that really kind of was contrary to what we were all taught. We would go into a room and you had a piece of brass that you had to slide into a slot to turn the electric on in the room, but would put a light over your door saying you're in there. Remember that? And we had a little incident downstairs one night when we were having a couple beers, getting close to starting the writing part of it, and you went upstairs and you were getting on the elevator, and there were some guys over there playing pool, and you said that they stopped and sat on the table and were looking at you as you were getting on that elevator. I didn't know this was happening. I was still sitting there looking out the window, the picture glass window, thinking, my God, we've been here about a month now, and we've done everything wrong compared to what we should have been doing for our...
Were you looking at the reflection?
No, no. But we sat in that place. Every time we were there, we sat in there, we did such routines. And I was just contemplating that. And then you called and said, can you come up? And I said, sure. And you said, you see those guys down there? And I said, no. And, but that just set it off. We were probably talking about that before you left, because once you called and said that, told me that, I was like, well, then we should move. We've been doing everything wrong.
Yeah.
And, but we pressed that the next day, and we got Tim to sign on with it, and we moved up to Athens.
Yeah, that we were being cased, we were being watched, we were being surveilled. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to see people that don't look normal walking around and essentially taking pictures of everything that's a key and essential element of their target. So they want to know who the hell we are.
Well, and here, what's crazy is I've been in other countries where you go around a shipyard. If you had a camera in your hand, they were throwing you to the ground.
Yeah.
And taking the camera from you. Here, we were walking around, so we were somebody. If they were observing us, these are somebody that these people want here,
right? That
the government wants here.
I was the benefactor. I mean, in special ops, there's lots of little niches, right? Mm-hmm. You know, everybody's kind of does the general stuff, whatever your service has you doing as far as training, and you move up in your ability until you're at a master level and a lot of things. But then there's some goofy, weird sidecar stuff, and I was doing a lot of that when I was younger in the teams, and then later on when I was an officer at SEAL Team 4. But you find yourself, I'll give an example. We're supposed to go and use our best judgment, check out this little fishing village. It's right on the border of Nicaragua and Honduras. And we're obviously not local Hondurans.
You're a gringo.
We're very gringo. I mean, there's nobody in there as tall as us. There's nobody that looks like us. We all lift weights. You're not walking in there and trying to pretend you're anything. So the second you walk in there, the tom-toms are going. Everybody, unlike Iraq, where it's the arachnophone cell phones, everybody on those things telling everybody, they're there, they're on the corner or whatever.
They're coming your way.
Bring everything you got. In this case, we walk in this little restaurant and we're sitting down, and we had day packs. And inside the top of the day pack, where the part that would go against your back, we had the fur part of Velcro, and then we had the hook side of the Velcro glued into a holster, and then we had a 9mm weapon there. So basically, we kept the top of the backpack open about 8 inches, and it sat here. So if we had to, we had a weapon that fast.
Defend yourself.
But nobody else could see it.
Right.
So we thought, well, that's pretty suave and Debona, right? We got everything covered.
I thought you would have fanny packs.
No.
No fanny packs?
No, Army surplus sometimes had some extras. but they're hard to get because the Army guys like it.
We're all over.
Yeah. You can't even go to, what was it, what's something Joe's outside of Benning?
Ranger Joe's.
You can't even go to Ranger Joe's to find a fanny pack.
No? No. Not anymore, huh?
No.
Can't make them fast
all the way back to World War I when they had bigger fannies. So we're sitting there, and about 10 minutes after we're sitting there, we've ordered our meal, whatever, in walks like the cast from the Three Amigos. Not Chevy Chase, and,
right.
but El Guapo, and they're coming bandoliers, and guns, and there's probably about 7 or 8 of them, and they come in, and as soon as they come in, they stop and stare at us. Now we're back against the wall, because like my kids say,
Yeah.
I always got to look at the door. We were all looking
That's
at the
in
door. And then they, after half a second pause, they went over to this corner, and they just started making noise, and they're putting their guns down. They got machine guns, stuff like that. Okay, so this group just walked into a fishing village,
Right.
dressed like they're right out of the 1880s, and they're going to go, steal cattle in Texas or
Right.
something.
Or
We're
Pancho
sitting,
Villa's group.
and we're sitting over there. Most of us are in our mid to late 20s, so we look like we're on a college tour,
Right.
but we're also in a fishing village in the middle of nowhere. So
Right.
they're like looking at us, we're looking at them. So we said, all right, hey, we're just going to hang until they leave. They were there for like an hour and a half. And we're just sitting there drinking water, ordering more food because we didn't want to get up
Right.
and leave and
Walk into something.
yeah. And eventually they got up and walked out. And then
You guys went out the back door.
no, we waited like another 20 minutes, and I had 2 of my guys go out first. But it'd be like 2 guys with pistols against
Yeah.
El Guapo and his buddies. So, and then they weren't there.
Were they
And then-
carrying AKs? Or were
No. They were carrying they weren't AKs. They weren't FN, FAL, stuff like
Okay,
that.
yeah.
European stuff.
Yeah, European stuff.
So a day later, the CIA agent shows up. All right, this is like a really interesting fishing village. It's only got
Right.
maybe 150 people in it. They're dirt poor, and they've had the 4 college-looking guys look like they're in the lacrosse players.
Right.
Who always have backpacks on for some reason. El Guapo and his crew, and now there's this agent. And he gets a hold of us, and he sits down, and he's all nervous and everything. He says, "Yeah, we got word through our network that you guys were spotted, and the bad guys are eyeballing you and everything. And you guys okay? You in a good defensive position?" I said, "We're in a woman's house that we're renting.
Right.
I mean, a good position.
Right.
I mean, did the people that sent us in here know that this was going on?" "I don't know who sent you in here." "Okay." Then he reaches in his backpack and hands us like a handful of Belgian cherry grenades. And I don't know if you ever saw those. They're
No.
about the size of a cherry bomb.
Right.
And they come in these plastic bandoliers where there's a slit, and you push it, and like kind of like a pea in a pod,
Yeah.
and the grenade pops out. And you can attach them to wires at a door. They're not. I don't even know if there's a lot of flash crash, but they are anti-personnel frag grenades. So
Will they open the door? Could you use them for opening the door?
you might be able to. There's not hardly anything in them. They're really interesting, but I know they're Belgian, and they call them cherry grenades.
Huh.
And he's like, "Here, you got to wire your rooms and all that stuff."
Huh.
And we had a radio, HF radio, so I called the people that sent us there and said, "I don't know what you guys are expecting, but we probably have enough to come back and talk to you a little bit. We've only been here for 4 days, and we've learned a whole shitload." So, but that that kind of a program, you got your hair is long, and you're supposed to be something else you're not, and then you're sending, and everybody knows who you are because
Right.
you're in their hometown.
Right.
So you're eyeballed by everybody.
Right.
Just like
You get mean mugged.
when we were in
everywhere.
Iraq,
Right.
what's the rule? You go down the street and everybody's all happy, and then all of a sudden everybody shuts up and they start clearing the street. You're like, "Oh shit."
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're another similar situation. We were in Congo, and we were down in a province called Bas Congo, and it was down along the Congo River. We went down to Matadi, which was the last seaport going up the Congo River to the Atlantic Ocean, about 90 miles in. And we went into a little village. We were running out of there checking concessions for a mining company that wanted to go in. And I stepped out in between a couple of buildings, and I looked off to my left, and there's a Chinese guy looking down at me. And I know he was thinking the same thing I was thinking. He's like, "What's Round Eye doing here?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, "What's the Yellow Man doing here?" And we both looked at each other, had that same question with each other, but it was just 2 worlds just looked right into each other's eyes. There was no escape, and we weren't on our turf either. But I never found out what he was doing there.
It's hard to explain to people because it's not like badass dudes. It's not like biker gangs or organized crime guys who are trying to, macho their way, psychologically. It's very subtle. It can be intense, but usually it's not. And it's directed, even though they're not necessarily looking at you, and you just say, oh, shit. Why is that guy? Why is he checking me out? And if you pointed it out, if you could freeze everything and say to the guy next to you or person next to you, see that guy over there, watch what he's doing, they still wouldn't pick up on it.
Right.
It's just a body language thing. It's the micro expressions and the way they look at you. They teach you, and then you go out there and you learn it like you learn almost everything else by human nature. It's not the person that walks in that's loud, or the person that walks in and demands a beer, or even it's the person sitting in the corner that's checked you out twice.
Well, see, I saw him, and I was there for minerals, diamonds, and I didn't know what he was there for. I'm sure it was minerals, but I didn't know if it was going to interfere with my business, and at what length would they go to get the minerals that they want. Would I be in the way?
And
I
so you guys are having parallel thoughts.
Parallel thoughts.
Yeah.
It was that one of those things. It wasn't about national, security or any of that. But it was the same thing. It was still that mission focus. We were getting those minerals out, and I'm pretty sure that's probably what he's doing too.
Sometimes the instincts can be wrong, though. I was in Tunisia during the Cold War, and we were training Tunisians in combat swimming.
Mm-hmm.
The Russian fleet was in. That was kind of an interesting thing to see during the Cold War. And the Russians were flooding the town of Beret in Tunisia. So we'd go in there to get fish and stuff. The cook would make it back at the base we were at. And you're watching this, there's naval officers and sailors walking everywhere in uniform. And to get there on a rubber boat, we had to go past, a docked Russian nuclear submarine and a Russian cruiser. And
your dinghy, right?
Yeah, like the French were teaching their Air Force, and the Brits were teaching their tank guys, and the Russians were teaching their ship people, and we were in there teaching this commando stuff. And because of that, we had long hair and beards, and we were kind of reporting to the embassy. And they gave us, the protocols if everything goes to shit or hell in a handbasket, whatever. So we went into Tunis, the main city, and we're walking down this grand avenue, and it's got like 3 lanes going one way, 3 lanes going the other way, and then probably, a 30 or 40 yard median strip with walking paths and trees. It's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
And we're hunted, and this is probably a year and a half after the Iran hostage thing. We all saw 444 days of them going,
right.
So we're standing there, and one of the guys gets a magazine, and we all stop because we heard something. And we hear like this. That sound kept getting louder and louder and louder and louder. And where's that coming from? And then one of the guys looks back right down the middle of that median between the trees, and he realizes from the far street, 3-lane boulevard or avenue, whatever, all the way to the other 3 was just a wall of humanity with banners running, going, and we said, "This is it."
Yeah.
So, and there was
grab the fish. We're out of here.
2 years earlier, a guy in Africa, one of our guys from SEAL Team 2, he was in the hospital, and the government fell, and they were hunting for him, and he ended up sneaking out, and he lost like 25 pounds. He ended up sneaking up out of the country into Egypt, and one of those kinds of things.
Border crossing.
Yeah, we had a Where's Waldo map of Africa, and everybody was making fun of it and saying,
so there's a lottery on where he was.
Bets and where he was going to pop up next. So this was reality once in a while, but seeing it on TV, that we immediately, what's our emergency protocol?
Right.
Get to a hotel, call the special number. We do all that. We get picked up, right? We get to the embassy, what happened? It was a soccer match. They were all going to the stadium for some huge soccer match.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so, so much for instincts.
Yeah.
We ran like,
should have had the sports page.
We ran like a bunch of Cub Scouts. and not only did we run like a bunch of Cub Scouts, we ran, and everybody in the embassy and the agency, everybody knew we ran like a bunch of Cub Scouts.
Oh, so you were exposed. It wasn't like you went, like nobody saw that.
You couldn't man talk or BS your way out of it. You were, Yeah, it was shameful.
Yeah, yeah. You're talking about with the Russians. We went into Portugal. And we went in as a scuba team. So we flew in. We had all our boats and all our stuff and stuff, and they pulled us right up next to a Russian CCCP aircraft, and I was like, what's going on with this? Again, it's like, why is this happening? That shouldn't be there. And so we knew they were photographers and stuff. So we went and did our job. We came back. We were loading up again. They pulled another one in. And this time, being a wise ass, E6, E7, I went in on the aircraft, got my camera, came outside, and I was having people pose, laying out like this with the plane sitting on their hands, taking the picture. And went in, put the camera back inside. 10 minutes later, here comes 12 Portuguese SPs. Come here with dogs, canines, automatic weapons. And he walked right up to me and said, give us the film. And I went, what film? And they went, give us the film. I went, all right. So I started walking off to get on the aircraft. I stepped up on the ramp, walked up onto the plane, started to follow me up the ramp. I stopped right there. This is American property, American territory. You are not invited on this aircraft. Get off. And he backed off the aircraft. So I went in, I grabbed a roll of unexposed film, walked to the end, and went, pulled it out, tossed him the film, said, there you go, it's yours. So I still got the picture of one of my guys holding the CCCP aircraft in his hand, and actually had it as a Facebook cover for a while. It was kind of funny. But those things happen. Those things happen.
They do. They in Iraq, we're actually just doing a training run. And so we had about 4 vehicles, civilian vehicles. This wasn't when I was in uniform. We'd come around a corner, and there's the back of looked like a moving van.
Mm-hmm.
And the streets are very narrow, and pull around, first vehicle, second vehicle, third vehicle. First vehicle stops, and all the guys that are loading this moving van freeze and kind of look at us in mid-load. And they're loading cases of guns. And they all have like ninja masks on. They're all dressed in black. So it's a Shiite militia group.
Right.
And they're looking at us, and we're looking at them through the dashboard or to the window shield. Beautiful sunny day. It's just so bizarre. You're looking at them like, okay, is somebody going to do something stupid?
So who's going to draw first?
That last car, get in reverse and slowly start backing out. Second car, start backing out. First car, and so we just kind of backed, and they waited till we were about 10 seconds into the backing move, and just turned and ignored us and kept loading. On any other day, you turn around that corner, it would have been shoot out the OK Corral.
Right, a gunfight.
But then that's why you always have to be ready, right? You don't. In training, they give you this impression you're going to go to war, you're going to go to a battlefield, you're going to be told who the enemy is, you're going to be told what they're using, what kind of weaponry you're going to be up against, what their tactics are. You're going to train with the guys that you're going to train with. You're going to go to war with the guys you go to war with, or the guys you trained with, and the guys and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden you're with a couple of guys you don't know, or with only half the guys in some weird situation that wasn't part of any training manual, wasn't part of any training session. And the thing that gets you through that, especially in the special ops world, is that you were taught to think,
right.
not taught to just follow an order or a football play.
Right.
And so you immediately have situational awareness, what's going on. Second thing is a quick assessment of the risk, and the third thing is a decision. Make a decision.
The only time you absolutely follow that order is if you get a packet decision going to Coronado. And with that, my friend, we're going to conclude this.
What a dig.
I had to wait. I mean, you gave me the perfect line. Thanks a lot, Marty, for
thanks for
spending some time. I had we took a little trip down memory lane.
Great seeing you.
It was great seeing you. And we'll see more. We're both in Florida now, so looking forward to it.